I'm sitting here with Joaquim Dos Santos, one of the directors of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It's such an honor to get to sit here with you, dude. How are you doing?
The honor's all mine. I'm doing great. Yeah.
I want to start off because, you've done a lot of projects in the past and you've worked in different departments, but this one is really special for you because this is your feature directorial debut, correct?
It is. Yeah. It's a different beast. Yeah. Actually, I think it's all three directors feature directorial debut. Yeah.
That was you already answered.
Sorry,
all
I'm
of mine.
leading. I'm leading.
It's okay. I was gonna say, how does it feel to have your first movie release in IMAX?
It's unbelievable. I mean, IMAX to me was like the equivalent of a roller coaster. It's like the movie event. So the idea that something that I was a part of is on IMAX, it's surreal.
Yeah, and you're gonna see your name. It's gonna be bigger than life.
Very strange. All very strange. Cool, but strange.
The sound in this movie is so important to everything else that's going on. Was there a moment specifically that you felt the sound was something that you wanted to focus in on and make super impactful for that moment?
Yeah. I mean, so I think one thing that really sets this film apart from other, feature animated stuff is there's actually quiet moments. And when I say quiet, I don't mean absent of sound. I mean, it's just beautiful ambient, sort of white noise, the city noise, the noise of the city. This film lets those scenes really ride. And taking that in and seeing those moments between Miles and Gwen and hearing that, it's surreal to be a part of something like that, something that took that chance and let the sound do the heavy lifting.
This movie has some super deep cuts in terms of like the fandom and the Spider-Man lore of the characters and different multiverses they're in. How has your fandom kind of influenced that storytelling?
My personal fandom? I mean, look, I've said this to some other people, but, I've only known a life with Spider-Man in it. So our family crest, I was born in Portugal. My middle name is Aranha, which means spider in Portuguese. And our family crest is the spider. So one of the first images that I have waking up in bed is John Romita Sr.'s sort of classic Spider-Man cover. I had a big poster on my wall. So my fandom is literally day one fandom. I grew up, formative years was in the sort of mid to late 90s. And this was sort of the Todd McFarlane era, and then the post Todd McFarlane era when everybody had the mass exodus and went to Image Comics and the Clone Saga happened. So bringing all that, I mean, it's everything, my fandom. I don't know if it's I definitely planted a flag for Scarlet Spider to take on that classic 90s look. But yeah, I mean, I think the fandom is sort of part of my DNA at this point.
Well, I mean, you can feel it too. It's one of those films that I feel like you actually know that a fan made that because you're sitting there and there's no other way it could have been done. That's just, to be honest, it's one of those things that I feel like audiences are going to appreciate. And I certainly did. So I'm very excited to get to sing your praises. I want to know, the first film was so well known for the music,
Yep.
and that's one of the things that people still harken back to. I think you guys did a great job at carrying that into this film. And I would just kind of love to zero in on that and ask, what was it like when you were planning what music/artist collabs you were going to do for the film? And part two to that is, are there any artists or songs that you didn't get to include that you would have loved to?
I mean, as far as, let me answer the first part first. I think the great thing about animation and the fact that this has taken us 4 years to make is that it's highly, highly iterative. We're making multiple versions of this film before the final thing that you see on screen. So we've tried every song under the sun. We have an amazing music department. Spring is sort of got her finger on the pulse of everything that is coming out, and that has already been. So we sort of have the pick of the litter. We're really lucky in that regard. And again, this is a huge team effort. So, truth be told, I'm sort of overstaging scenes and action sequences and these sort of dramatic beats while the music department is running and placing songs in and trying new things and running them past Phil, Chris, Kemp. The only way this film gets made is if we're sort of splitting duties that way. So there were plenty of times where, you know, I'd watch a scene for the first time in editorial and be like, whoa, this track is sick.
No, that's awesome. You kind of led into something I was going to ask too, because, you know, you worked with 2 other great filmmakers on this. And I'm just curious, like, how is it, you know, working with a team of directors, you know, and could you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I think we liken ourselves to sort of a jazz trio. You know, we play really good jazz with each other. It really helps. You know, Kemp comes from an amazing screenwriting background. He was a journalist. He brings this sort of like life experience into anything that he does. And Justin, I mean, look, the guy was responsible for, you know, the visuals of the first Spider-Verse film, which, you know, I wasn't a part of, but I can tell you from the outside looking in was a seismic shift across the entire industry. And I'm predominantly, you know, sort of a story artist, really focused on camera, sort of, you know, whatever's happening with the characters, you know, within the frame. So our powers sort of like occupy these, you know, different areas of filmmaking, and we kind of complement each other really well. At the beginning of the film, I'd say like the first year and a half, we were across every meeting together. So we had that time to kind of like bond and figure out what each other's tastes were and where we were leaning and where we could count on each other for everything. And then once the film really started picking up production and we had to kind of split off and go our separate ways, we'd see each other in the halls, you know, one going to one meeting and going to the other. And we'd sort of high five and go like, you got the thing? You got the thing? I got the thing. So it worked out well that way.
You could have recreated the Spider-Man meme with the 2 of you doing the prank.
Absolutely.
I hope that happened at some point. I don't know if it did or if it was ever discussed.
I think
or maybe
we were pretty close.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, you did it. There's that moment in the film, which, you know, has already been in the promotional material, but you guys took that to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
So I think you might have just created a new meme, whether or not you know that. The mix of live action and animation is something that to me stood out in this film. And I'm just curious if you could speak to that and kind of, you know, it's not something that I think many people would think going in, like, oh my God, we're going to see different real live action things that maybe harken to other cool stuff. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Look, I think, you know, anytime you take a chance with a film like this, you know, the first film took all the chances, really. You know, I think the first film opened up these doors creatively for us to just stomp right through and do whatever the heck we really wanted to do. So I think, you know, pre-Spider-Verse, I don't know that you know, mixing live action with animation the way we did works that well. Look, there's Mary Poppins. It worked beautifully in Mary Poppins. But this is a different sort of thing. And connecting those lines and sort of hinting that like, oh, this is a big shared space was really fun. But I think without the first film, I don't know that we have the permission to do that.
Well, I almost feel like you took the permission and you excelled at the test.
I think you're right. I think we sort of like kicked it as far in as we could go. And look, I think there's still room to grow. You know, I think there's a movie beyond this one. And there's, who knows, you know, speaking to, you know, being a fan of this stuff, as a fan, I know what I want to see.
The ending to the film was crazy. Obviously, we're not going to talk about exactly what happens, but I do want to talk about the impact of where it leaves off and how you think fans are going to react.
I think we have the benefit of being the second act of this 3-act play. And with a second act, you know, there's darker tones. There's a lower point that the character needs to go through. That, as a creative, is really exciting to explore. Once we decided, you know, where we wanted this to end, we went all in. Not only did we know, you know, we were going to put Miles on his heels, but there's this twist at the end that I think if people, you know, are sort of leading and sort of saying like, oh, I think I know where this is going, then it goes and takes this left turn.
Yeah. It was more like a slam in the face.
The best possible slam, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, I think creatively, that's the fun stuff. You know, that's the stuff that once we really dialed that in, I remember the moment in editorial where everybody sort of looked at each other and went, and this was at storyboard phase. This was before, you know, there was pretty graphics on screen. Went, this is juicy.
Yeah. I could, there's only a few cliffhangers in film history that I would say were a little more impactful than that. So I think it's really awesome. If you had to like identify as one of the Spider-Men in this film, who would it be and why?
I would say, I mean, look, I'm not saying this because he's the star of the film, but it is Miles Morales. I think it's Miles Morales. Well, let me just say it's the Morales family, because, you know, we've all grown up with parents who might have been hovering around and being overprotective. And to me, that's the thing that binds this whole film together. We can go across all the multiverses. We can go across all the craziest landscapes you can imagine. What we really hold on to is that relationship between Miles and his parents. So I've been on Miles's side. I've had those, you know, breaks with my mom where she wasn't stoked and I was storming out the door, and later apologized for everything I said. And now I'm on the other side. I'm a dad, and I've got a 7-year-old. And all the directors, they've all, you know, funny thing about Kemp is that he's got a kid that was literally Miles's age, you know, going off to college while he was making this film and going through the parents' journey. My kid's 7. We went to soccer practice and I was holding his hand and he pulled his hand away from mine and he said, "Dad, don't hold my hand. My friends are over there." And I was like, it gutted me, you know, as a father, but I knew that's part of the journey.
Last question. Why should fans experience this film in IMAX?
They can see that it's going to fill their entire eyeballs. It's going to fill, you know, their brain. The sound in this thing is absolutely insane. They're going to be ensconced in visuals that they've never experienced before. And you can only do that on IMAX.